It's the Redirect Podcast, search industry research, discussion, and analysis from the Black Truck Media and Marketing Headquarters. And now, redirecting you to the Black Truck team.
Welcome to episode 68 of the Redirect Podcast. It's Wednesday, March 13th, 2019. I'm Jason Dodge, founder of Black Truck Media and Marketing. I'm joined this week by Patrick and Lauren from the Black Truck team. Wow, that's a mouthful. Welcome, gang.
Hey, happy to be here.
Getting back into our regular routine here. I think we're going to go to every other week recording because, guys, recording a podcast every single week is hard. It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
When we're trying to do work.
Right.
And keep up on everything.
It's not just a 30-minute recording session.
No, not at all.
There's more.
There's a lot of research that goes into it. There's a lot of reading and stuff like that. So, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and take the lead on this episode. I spent a couple of days out at SearchLove San Diego last week, and I wanted to share a few things from there. I have it was a 2-day deep dive, geek fest, I'll call it, of search marketing. I have a ton of notes. They're quite extensive, so it's kind of hard to pick out what I wanted to discuss. So kind of highlight real quick common themes from SearchLove were very much, I picked up on local search was a big theme. Content focus. There were multiple people talking about content and coming up with different ways to come up with content ideas. So that stuff, as I continue to digest those, I get to share with our team here. And then technical, like site performance side. So there's a lot of stuff out there around those subjects. So, but the big element I wanted to talk about is more on the local SEO front, and stemmed from some things that I've been researching prior to, and then Dana DiTomaso from Kickpoint, which I know, Pat, you've had the pleasure of listening to Dana before. I think she does a fantastic job speaking. She delivered a really great talk centered on understanding your local search presence. So not so much on what and how, but more like, how do you know what the hell or where the hell people are coming from? Like, what are you looking at? And the big item out of all of that is the use of UTM tracking codes, specifically in your Google My Business listing.
Interesting. So
how you have a Google My Business listing, you have your link back to your website or to that location, and savvy marketers, I would say, for a while, have known or have used UTM tracking on the inbound link. So in your Google My Business, or what we refer to as GMB, in your GMB link, you've been able to use UTM, like campaign tracking code on that, because otherwise you hadn't a clue, especially in Search Console, where that traffic was coming from.
Right.
Zero insights. There was no way to parse that out from the rest of the pack. That was at least one way to say, hey, these people are coming in from our map listings, if you will. Obviously, you still don't know if that's local pack featured, what have you. So the problem is that this has gone away. And so Marie Haynes had talked about it on a podcast recently, and there's been some chatter online about it. But basically, if you were using UTM tracking on the link from GMB, it is now getting canonicalized by Google. Thanks, Google. And so what it's doing is it's stripping the UTM off, and you lose all traceability of that traffic.
Awesome.
So now you're kind of left with back to square one, right? So that is basically, nobody really had a solution on how the hell we're supposed to track that now, or how we're supposed to separate that out. I think that some easy things to go back to are in your reporting monthly, whether for us we're reporting to clients or whether you're reporting up the chain. Might not rely a little bit more heavily on the data that you can get out of Google My Business. I don't know. I was going to kind of throw that out to you guys as to what you thought about that. I mean, losing that type of insight or that detail is certainly a blow to quite a few people. But what do you think on that?
I haven't provided enough attention to it at this point. It's with the type of work I'm doing on my specific clients, as far as tracking back to GMB. And my focus is heavier on the Google Ads side.
Correct.
And where they have a GMB page, I've connected it to Google Ads, and I'm able to track those Google conversions that
from the store,
or directions or map listings, which I have no control over. That's all just, it's either on or off, and then Google will create it as a conversion point if it actually happens. So I can't speak on that enough at this point to formulate an opinion on it.
So going back to the original, I guess the root of the problem is that the marketer or marketers are trying to better determine where their traffic is coming from within, and is it coming from Google My Business or these organic searches?
Yeah, is it local? Think of it as, is it local pack, localized, or is it more broad-based, general organic listings?
Yes. So let's to play along and kind of say maybe we're a franchise of auto garages, right? And so you've got multiple locations, and the insight there would be, are we getting more business in location A or location B? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, for the most part, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that would be fair.
Yeah, so I think it's kind of like one of those things that maybe going back to or ignoring that we were even allowed to put UTMs in at one point.
Yes.
And you have to go into Google Analytics and you have to then segment based off of, okay, so, let's see some geo traffic and like where are those locations and what's happening around those areas, I guess, and filter it based on organic search that way. And then maybe you could try to correlate that along with the location of the business. Would be an interesting way to see, like, if the question going back to that is which location is generating more business or like which piece of that, would that answer our question?
Yeah, and then we get into is correlation, causation, correlation,
Exactly.
etc. I think what it really comes down to is, and this was something that we had discussed pretty heavily kind of coming out of MozCon last year, Pat, I think in July 2018 was, people's reliance on Google's tools as taking them as gospel, if you will,
Right.
like Search Console, for instance. We don't want to rely 100% of our knowledge and insights based on strictly what Search Console tells us, which is why we employ a lot of other third-party premium type tools to help guide us in that, and we're mashing everything together and then developing the strategy out of that. I think the same thing goes at the local level. There's probably other things to do. On the super high-end level, you've got companies like Stat that you can take keywords and look at that hyper localized, or what the Mobile Moxie team does to say, what do we look like at a mobile local level? Local Falcon visualizations on maps and things like that. I think that technology is getting better to not focus solely on Google stuff.
So the way Lauren just explained that made me have another train of thought. Something that I've been doing and I didn't even correlate it was if I have a company with multiple locations, when I'm making their Google My Business page, a practice I've been doing lately is when I make their Google My Business listing, I'm not putting their homepage in.
Right.
I'm putting the location page as the page.
Agreed.
So then you can track landing pages, and then you can go in by source and look at, in your analytics data, you can look at landing pages and then the source. And
Totally.
it gives you another layer to look at. But
that
in your
can help.
example of the auto locations, if it's a franchisee with 10 locations in a greater metro area,
Yeah.
and the person's driving around saying, "Oh man, I need a new battery." I'm gonna look at my phone, local auto parts near me. He clicks on that page and follows through to it. That will show as a landing page.
You still don't know if that was a local map search, right?
Right.
Or a near me organic search. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like organic pack versus local pack.
There's still some blind spots in there.
Yeah.
But you're closer.
Yeah, I would say it's at least showing you at a local level how you're improving.
Rather than sending everybody to a home page.
Agreed.
Send them to a locations page if you have that option.
Go ahead.
I was just going to kind of ask the question of, let's say that we can determine that it's coming from a map search or through maybe like local pack and get that information that we want. What do we do with that information?
great question.
going next? I mean, so sometimes I think as marketers we kind of get caught up in trying to solve problems that aren't really problems yet, or as marketers we want to build a website that does this thing, to produce a solution that there's really like, why are we creating this solution and there's no problem that exists? So sometimes I like to go back and ask, let's say that we did have that piece of information, how insightful is it really? That's where I go back to this case study question, I guess, if you will. If the business owner is trying to determine, or the marketer is trying to determine which are the hot spots for locations, then Pat's recommendation is a pretty solid answer. I mean, if you're trying to see, okay, these locations are the landing pages, we can at least determine that like the searches are stronger in those locations. We can.
I think to make the case where it really comes into play is the competitiveness. So the competitive side of, are we at the table? Are we not at the table? Who's at the table? Who continues to be at the table? And why are we not at the table?
Yeah.
As we sit around a table and record a podcast. So I think we're gonna table that for now. To add a dad joke in there.
You're such a dad.
I know.
Well done.
But I think the kind of in closing too, one thing that kind of came out of this so as this conference is going on, there's this whole other sidebar conversation that's happening on Twitter, and people are talking about those that are using UTM codes on their site. So like UTM codes to basically measure certain actions and where people are coming from. So a menu item click or something like that. And so the same thing can happen, right? In terms of stripping that data, you technically lose that information because you have to remember that's almost like a unique page in terms of a referral source. So for actions like that, like, are people clicking on this button? Are they downloading these certain things? Are they clicking here? Are they coming from there? That's really where you want to harness the power of Google Tag Manager. And whether it's data layers, specific tags and triggers, that's really what you want to do there. There's really a fascinating conversation that went on about people who are like, oh, I shouldn't do that? Like, no, you shouldn't do that.
Wow, that's interesting.
So, but I'll digress. So some interesting stuff shaking on the local front. Good stuff. So, Pat?
I would like to discuss images.
Images.
Yeah, for web. Safe for web, basically. Conversation I've been having with some partners we work with, and then at an event recently there was a question that came up about what's the right size for an image on the web as far as a display-heavy business, an image-heavy business. So I
interrupt.
Sure.
File size or dimension?
Just wait.
Oh, God.
Interrupting me.
God.
You always interrupt me. All of the things.
Okay, great.
Yeah, that's it. It's so that that's your question. You're one of the crowd that doesn't know the difference or doesn't understand the difference. So we're going to talk about what is the image that you're using. What is the intent of the image? Where did the image come from as far as the source tool? Was it a phone or was it a DSLR? And then where are you displaying it? The question always is high resolution image for your web display. And now here on the SEO side of it, we're always talking about page speed load, and we want a fast load. And a lot of times, you go into your page speed insights, and it says that you could decrease the image sizes by 85%, and no one will notice the difference in the image size. And I just chortle at that every single time because there's so much in there that is out of the control of the average website owner because they're not the developer and they just provided the files and maybe the developer didn't know it or it's an automated process for them. So there's a couple things that you want in an image for your website. You want it to look good, you want it to load quickly, and you want Google to be able to index it. The indexing comes from alt tags and making it friendly. So we're not going to talk so much about the index side of it. We're going to talk about the look good and the load quickly. And you look at a couple different things. Image size is vastly different than, image file size is vastly different than dimension. There's different elements of dimension. Think about your two-dimensional image like a box. You've got three different dimensions you have to look at. You have the X, Y, and the Z, which is the dots per inch or points per inch. And to make that, to look at it this way, let's say you have let's talk about thread count on your flat sheet on your bed. So you have a queen sheet, and I don't know the dimensions of a queen sheet, but you talk about threads. You've got that Egyptian sateen.
Always Egyptian
that's like
cotton, yes.
800 thread counts per inch or whatever.
The higher the better.
The higher the better. The more comfortable, the softer, the smoother sleep you're going to have, blah, blah. Now, what happens if you take that same exact flat sheet and shrink it down to your dish towel? It's still got all those same thread counts in it, but now it's the size of your hand towel. What are all those extra threads doing? They're not doing anything. They're not helping you at all. There's no relevancy to those extra thread counts. Okay, so that's your third dimension that you have to look at. So I ran a little test on some things on an image that I took directly out of my iPhone 7, and I'll go over that in a second. That's your teaser. So you've got file format too. That's another one. Everybody defaults to a JPEG or .jpg. Another one you can look at is a PNG or a GIF. I'm always going to call it a GIF. I don't care what everyone else says. It's a GIF. So there's a different best case use for it. Oftentimes, a PNG is going to be better for a graphic type image, where let's say the majority of your graphic is all one color, where that's less data that the file has to build. Okay. So the PNG is going to be the win on that one. Now,
on what type again?
A graphic.
A graphic. Okay, so graphic type.
So on a photo, look at the photo side. If I'm going to save it for web, I'm going to look at saving it for a full color bleed, which is the 256 colors. And depending on how it looks, because sometimes it can get dumbed down as a GIF versus a JPEG. So I'm always going to default by testing to see how visually, at a desired dimension, my GIF looks on screen versus a JPEG.
Oh, like if there's any degradation.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a lot of times you'll see that in like blacks leading to grays. You'll see like a splotchy line through it. So I'll always do a visual review of that. The next part is PPI, points per inch. We just talked about the thread count in your sheet. If you take this giant bed sheet, so an image out of your DSLR, which oftentimes can be a dimension of, let's say, 9,000 pixels wide by 4,000 pixels tall, and then you shrink it down and put this on the web page, it's not going to help you. There's absolutely no difference whatsoever in that image when you look at it online. You have to ask yourself, what's the use of this? If you're selling imagery, if you're selling something that you need to be able to, as a tool on your website, you have to have the ability to dramatically zoom into something to see details. You have the full display and then the greater zoom. Then maybe you might want to think about uploading the higher resolution image. The problem when you upload these high resolution images onto your website, and then they only get displayed at a small browser size, the CMS still contains the full resolution file. So if you upload a file that's 5 megapixels big, or megabytes big, it's only going to display an image that's roughly a couple hundred kilobytes. But the CMS in the browser still has to load that 5 megabyte file.
So you're trying to put that work on the browser and the CMS to try and resize for it.
That's why your page is loading slow. One of the elements of your page loading slow. So I had a theory that browsers display only in 72 dpi. You have your screen display, then you have your browser display. I could not find any solid evidence that my theory is true. However, I could not find any solid theory that it was wrong. So I'm sticking with your browser. The browser, specifically the browser, is displaying at 72 dots per inch, regardless of what your image.
Regardless of if I have a 4K monitor.
Yeah, if you have a 4K monitor, if it's a Retina, is it non-Retina. So I ran a little test on my screen here. I'm on a 2016 non-Retina 13-inch MacBook Pro. It's got a native resolution of 2,500 pixels wide by 1,600 pixels tall. I took an image out of my phone. It's a JPEG saved at 72 dpi, and it is 3,000 wide by 4,000 tall. So it's a horizontal or a vertical image. Okay, so I took it. That image out of camera is 3.1 megapixels. Okay, it looks great on my screen. I saved it I simply just changed it. I dropped it down to 750 by 1,000 pixels. So if you're looking at a standard browser width on a full screen, let's say you want to image your header image of something, you're roughly 1,000 to 1,200 pixels wide. Okay, so this image now 750 by 1,000. At shrinking it down from the one dimension, if we look, it went from 4,000 to 1,000. It dropped that image from 3.1 megabytes to under 700 kilobytes. So I took the exact same image and all I did was change it to a PNG to see what happened.
Okay.
And it took that 691 kilobytes and bumped it up to 1.4 megabytes. So then I took that kilobyte one, the 691, and I checked it out as a GIF. And it was 447 kilobytes. And then I opened up all four of them on my screen at 100% view, and I could not physically tell a difference in any of them. Looking at them, saying it's on a web page, looking at the 3.1 megapixel versus the 447 kilobytes, there's absolutely no visual difference in them to the naked eye.
Have you, in this is really fascinating stuff, and you having a photography background helps too. Anything on JPEG 2000, JPEG XR?
Those are all marketing. Those are all different companies trying to have standardized. It's always going to maintain. It doesn't matter the type. It's JPEG. It's JPEG. It's JPEG.
So I've been reading a lot of information that came out of Lighthouse, and Lauren might be educating us more on it. But I'll be able to share some more information. But there's a ton of information out there now. I don't know where it comes from. JPEG 2000, JPEG XR, WebP, different image formats, but they're certainly pushing this like hyper compression and quality characteristics versus older JPEG and PNG.
Yeah, it all starts with what the original image, though.
You still got to convert it, right?
You still got to have that original file size. So that 3.1 megapixel file or megabyte file now, which is being stored in a CMS, now is only 447 kilobytes. That dramatically decreases the speed and the volume of space that it's being
massive amounts of
so why waste all that bandwidth? Why waste all that load time with all your images? And that's just one image on a screen, on a page. And if you have a page that has 6 images on it, which is not an outlandish thing, it can load so much quicker.
Would you still say, depending on the page, would you still push for, say you have an infographic or a really nice, an infographic would be a great example. Right. Would you still say, hey, you know what, the rest of the images, if I can get those file sizes down, JPEG, where that infographic may be still a PNG and allow it to be expanded because it's much more detailed and okay.
And again, it depends on what the use is going to be. In an infographic, oftentimes there's fine details in those, and you want maybe the viewer to be able to zoom in on it and whatnot.
Cool.
Do it that way. But if you have a graphic in an infographic, like an infographic, oftentimes you're working with maybe 4 colors.
Sure.
So that's only 4 pieces of code that have to be known and saved in that file. So a 3,000 wide pixel infographic that only has 3 colors in it, that's a PNG, might be a fraction of the size of a megabyte, or of a photograph, a JPEG, that's smaller. So you think about the data. I have a background in digital photography. Ages ago, I worked in a photo lab, a digital photo lab, and people would ask me to burn in a blown out sky. What that means, like, is overexposed, the sky was white. Okay, so they say, can you darken the sky? And my talk back on that was, I can't build data where there is no data. You stop talking about it as a photograph of the sky because it's data. The pixel is pure white. I can't build data on a white pixel. I can't increase the whiteness of a white pixel. Same thing with a black pixel, I might be able to go to gray, where it's a 0 spot. But if it's like in that middle range, I can enhance colors where there's color, but I can't make black not. The only thing I can do with black is gray. With white, there's nothing. So,
I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah,
before.
so
That's
there's no data. You think about it as being clear. It's a clear pixel. There's nothing in there to build upon. So if you have an infographic where the background is white and the inside is the black truck colors, which is black and orange, then it only has to store the black and orange data. And if it's all one color of orange and one color of black, that's only data that it has to store. So it's very little data. So the file is quite small. That's why I say do it on a graphic, because a graphic is usually not a full 256 color bleed like a photograph would be.
Interesting.
So do more diligence on your photos, and can dramatically increase the speed at which your page can load.
And certainly do that work offline before you're bringing them into your site.
This is way on the back end. You're doing this with your photographer. Let's say you're doing a site rebuild. You're asking your photographer to do this because it's not easy work. It's something your developer doesn't want to monkey with. Your developer wants finished files that he just drags and drops into his building tool. You want your photographer to do this, or you want to be educated enough where you can do this on your own if you're going that route. Oftentimes when you download a photo from a stock photo site, they'll give you, when you're buying the photo, you'll get different variations of it. You'll get high res, low res, you'll get different file formats.
You got to understand what you're going to be
using. You got to understand what you're doing with those and then use them appropriately. There's no reason to put this amazing, beautiful blacks, beautiful brightnesses that you see TVs advertised for. There's no reason for that on the web, because all you're doing is adding bloat.
What's interesting is that as we progress more and more on web performance and site speed, and last year's page speed update and stuff, the web is a disappointing place, not just from maybe what you read, but just the performance of sites. And I think the push for that is a better user experience, and primarily their push is Google. Is on the mobile front, but it is amazing what people get away with. It is amazing what people will wait for in terms of loading images that are, very like an image-heavy site.
Right.
I think it's an interesting one. So, yeah.
So what you're saying is I can't just put a plugin on my WordPress site to compress all my images and then it's all taken care of.
Because the big file's still in the background.
Yeah.
Noted.
Yeah, noted.
I understand. You might have read a blog post, but no. And I think that if you had a site where, hopefully maybe those files weren't massive to begin with, and you ran some page speed insights and were like, you're basically, I always say, pushing pixels at this point. Maybe the plugin's okay, like a WP Smush or something like that to help with that. Yeah. But hopefully on your main marketing page, those main keystone, cornerstone pages, you've done basically what Pat's saying, and you've done your diligence, your work offline to make the online experience much better.
No, I think that's a really good point. And kind of a takeaway is from an SEO perspective, obviously we know we can't afford to optimize every single page of a huge website, but those ones that you're really putting a lot of investment into, this is another area where you can definitely
for sure. And I think it's really I don't want to say we're on the cusp of that, because there's been some talk for a while, but you've talked about it. There's been others in the industry that have talked about it specifically or exclusively about like image search, the growth of image search, because we are actually visual search is much easier than written search to describe something. If I want to try and describe an article of clothing or a specific tumbler or glass or something like that that's in front of me, to describe that and kind of translate it in my brain and to my fingertips to type it, to get an accurate representation of that versus taking a photo of it and doing a visual search that way. Once the machine catches up, if you will, the visual search is going to blow keyword search out of the water.
It is. And if you want your images to be able to show up quick and fast.
Mm-hmm. No, it's really good.
Cool. Those are some good thoughts.
Anything to add?
Yeah, absolutely. So just to kind of continue the conversation on page speed insights, and so Pat's already outlined some of these things. One of the articles that was shared with me recently that I thought, we've heard, and we have a fair understanding now, I think, that if your page doesn't load fast enough, then maybe you might be penalized in rankings. I'm going to come at it from a different perspective based on what I found in this article that has more of a monetary background, or how can you be penalized in that? And then also Google has taken that and ran with it and created a tool to help you calculate how much you could be losing. So, little company known as Amazon, so had a 0.1 second increase in their load time and that resulted in a 1% decrease in sales. To give you some perspective on that, that's 1.3 billion per year.
Ouch.
So when we're talking about page speed insights, page speed, there's you can be penalized in the monetary sense as well. So Walmart, comparatively, 1 second decrease in load time resulted in a 2% increase in conversions, assuming that's online purchase conversion. That was an impact of $274 million per year increase.
So you make a valid point to kind of like connect all of these dots, if you will, is, you heard what Pat has to say about image optimization as being a really, I would say it's low-hanging fruit, right? We're not saying render blocking JavaScript and CSS issues right now. We're saying images. You're also taking it a step further, saying, hey, you really need to think about this and plan it out.
It's low-hanging effective fruit.
Right. And it could also feel daunting depending on the size of the site,
Right.
which also creates sometimes tension in a company. Doesn't matter what company it is, whether you are an agency doing work for a client or you are a company doing work on behalf of your company, to get buy-in on where you're going to spend that time. Kind of closing that loop is, hey, here's the monetary tie-in here to say we could our traffic is valued at X. We could be losing X plus by not doing these things. If we increase page speed, if we increase load or shorten load times, this is more or less what we could get in return, right?
Right.
So,
and to Pat's point, if I'm an e-commerce store owner and I have these really great high resolution shots of my work because I've been told that, high resolution and the better photo quality, the more conversion or the higher conversion rate I'm going to have on my site, right? But so you would go back to them and say it's not so much about having that high resolution because it's actually slowing down your load speed, or it actually isn't as much of an increase as you think it is to the naked eye.
Right.
It's almost like you blend that. I think you touch on it. Art direction, so on the count of whoever's doing your photography work.
Yeah.
And the technical side.
Right.
So it's art direction and the technical side.
It's a lot of times too, like your example of Walmart's online shopping platform and Amazon. Ultimately, that's user-generated content.
Yeah.
Because the vendors who are signing up to use those sites to sell are uploading their own photos. So I've not ever sold on those platforms before. I'm sure there's notes and maximums that you're allowed to upload file size.
You've sold on Etsy. Is there a maximum file size there?
There is, but it's usually dumb, like 10 megabytes.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
Okay.
So here's another example. If you look at the Google Ads display network, your image file sizes cannot be greater than 150 kilobytes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Those are tiny.
Yeah, think about that display image that runs the whole side of your browser. It cannot be larger than 150 kilobytes. That is a tiny file.
Yeah.
And if you think about what you've seen, look at the quality of those images that you see in those display ads. That entire image, I guarantee every single display ad that you see is not bigger than 150 kilobytes.
Because it can't.
Yeah.
It won't be allowed.
Right.
Awesome.
It won't even. You'll get a big red X on the screen, and it won't let you upload the file.
That's a great point. Absolutely.
Dang. All right. I'm cutting us off. We're in. No, that was really good. A lot of really great information. So I guess kind of to wrap it up, if you're using UTM tracking codes, Google My Business, you're not going to see that data. If you're using UTM tracking codes anywhere else on your site outside of actual campaigns such as email, paid search, etc., rethink that. Look at Google Tag Manager, and please listen to the middle segment, the chunk of this, where Pat deep dives into image optimization from a file size. Understanding that, I think, is going to save you a lot of time and headache. And if you need help trying to figure out the monetization side of it, we'll make sure we share the tool in our show notes too. So cool. Thanks, guys. Until next time, good luck.
This has been the Redirect Podcast. Check out the show notes at blacktruckmedia.com and add us on iTunes and Stitcher.